Welcome, greetings, greetings. Rockwell. Welcome to the BlackStar Film Festival's panel called By Any Means Necessary, The Secrets to Independent Producing. Up next to me, we have Nekisa Cooper. She's the co-founder of North Star Pictures. She is an alumni of the Sundance Institute Creative Producing Fellowship Program, and just a producer extraordinaire. Her credits include the documentary Eventual Salvation, the short film Orange Bow, the short film Colonial Gods, the documentary The Ugly Doll, and the multi-award-winning feature narrative Pariah. Yeah. She's also currently producing Dee Reese's third feature film, Bola, which she'll tell you a little bit about. She also has an MBA from Clark Atlanta University. I'm claiming her as Clark Atlanta fam, okay? And yeah, I am claiming you. And I'm just really excited for her to be here. Next, we have Nefertite Nguvu, who is the creative force behind Hollywood Africans and has directed and produced for the screen as well as the web. Her credits include the short films I Want You and End of Winter, both of which screened in festivals internationally. Nefertiti partnered with Queen Latifah's Flavor Unit Entertainment to produce and direct the 10-part documentary web series, The Road to Unity, featuring Queen Latifah. Nefertiti also amassed over $27,000 using the Kickstarter platform for her upcoming feature, In the Morning, which also stars Numa Perrier. Spike, I'm gonna save you for last, okay? Next, we have Lendl Tellington. He's the creative director and producer. He has specialized in videography and design that gives visual solutions to help his clients establish their brand and visibility. Lendl transformed advertising into filmmaking with his modern-day silent film, The Living, by High-Low. He produced it along with High-Low Boutique. That's Lendl. And also, we have Numa Perrier, we have Dennis Dortch, and we have Rockwell in the hat. Dennis Dortch and Numa Perrier are artists, filmmakers, and founders of Black and Sexy TV, a major pioneering force in independent online television and programming. With a full slate of web series, including The Couple, in which Numa stars, Hello Cupid, That Guy, and the award-winning Roomy Lover Friends, Black and Sexy TV has garnered over 3 million YouTube views and a YouTube subscriber base of over 47,000 and counting. They some bad folks, y'all. They also raised over $30,000 using the Kickstarter platform for the feature version of their hit web series, The Couple. And last, but certainly not least, we have the prolific, multi-award-winning producer, writer, and advocate for emerging filmmakers with over 50 produced credits. You know what? I'm just gonna start listing credits because his work speaks for itself. Malcolm X, Jungle Fever, Mo Better Blues, Do the Right Thing, School Days, She Gotta Have It, Red Hook Summer, Old Boy, Pariah, 25th Hour, Bamboozled, The Original Kings of Comedy, Love and Basketball, The Best Man, He Got Game, Four Little Girls, Get on the Bus, When the Levees Broke, Clockers, Tales from the Hood, New Jersey Drive, Drop Squad, Brooklyn, Joe's Bed-Stuy Barbershop, The Brick, Sucker Free City, She Hate Me, and many more. That's what I'm talking about. So my first question, okay, being a producer in general is just hard, and I know you all are all about your grind. Like, what made you want to be a producer and tell these particular kind of stories?
That's a big question to start off with. That's the point, right? You know, I support artists. I am no slasher. I'm just a producer. I'm a person who believes that my job sits at the intersection of art and commerce. And so these talented artists up here, I feel like it's my job to be a soldier for them in the marketplace, to help them create whatever content they can dream of.
I think for me, I really became a producer out of necessity. I realized that in order to see my own work come into fruition, I had to kind of take the bull by the horns and get out there and do it by any means necessary and kind of be the captain of the ship and make it happen. So that's why I just decided to become a slasher and be a producer / director.
Well, I had to raise the money for my films, so that's under the head of the producer. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, very similar situation where I felt like out of necessity, you just have to figure out how to make these visions come to fruition. And also like a lot of films that I produce center around like a community of artists and artisans that I like to support. So a lot of that work is also featured inside the film. So I figured that the film could also be an incubator for supporting other artists. So.
Producing is very hard work. I didn't want to do it at first, but now that I'm doing it, it's actually very exciting to see everybody come together and to see, you know, a good plan just form. So yeah, it's hard work, but it's really exciting. That's why I do it. It still excites me.
I think just being an artist, director, writer, you know, you want to do what you want to do anyways. The producing side is the other side. We want it to be more like entrepreneurs, and I think because we want to be in control of our images. So that same thing as everybody else is saying, it's a necessity of becoming a producer to make sure your vision comes to life and you have control over that vision and it gets done.
Wonderful, wonderful. So now with projects like Pariah, In the Morning, Black and Sexy TV, when you first started with The Couple and The Number, 40 Acres and a Mule, The Living, like, what was it about these projects or the companies that was like, okay, I have to do this right now. This has to happen. This has to exist in the world. What was it about that project, particularly Pariah?
For Pariah, it was about seeing our images on screen. I mean, that's really, I think we can all echo the same thing over and over again. It's about not seeing our images on screen and wanting to have our stories be told in a way that's respectful, in a way that's in keeping with you know, our storytelling tradition. So for us, Pariah was really about telling a story, a familiar story, from a different vantage point.
I think for me, I just, you know, I read recently Toni Morrison said something about she started writing books because those are basically the books she wanted to read. And I think for a lot of us, you know, we make these films because they are the films that we want to see. We want to see films that fully reflect who we are, you know, our lives. So that's, for me, I really want to make these films because these are the projects I want to see. You know what I mean? I want to see work that really fully depicts who we are.
I have a similar answer. You grow up, you're watching TV, you're watching films, you want to see images that reflect who you are and the world you live in. I'm of the age where it was, at one point, it was just Sidney Poitier, and then Bill Cosby, and what was the name of it? Diane Carroll, Julia. And it'd be like one. And what we've been able to do in the other art forms, music specifically, and I will put sports in there, we see ourselves. But this thing with the image, that's really the last frontier, because that's where you impact people. That's why it's been hard. There is not a coincidence that the inroads we've made in many other areas, we have not made that in the film or TV industry. We have people, African Americans, who own NBA teams, people who are presidents of teams, general managers. but there's not one African American I know of who has a green light vote. Again, these are the gatekeepers. These are the people who have their quarterly meetings. They sit around a table and decide what movie we're gonna make, what cable show we're gonna make, who's going on the front cover, who's gonna be buried. We're not in those gatekeeping positions that determines what we see. I always like to give this, to make it more visual for you, I always like to give this story of Soul Plane. We were not in the room when they had the green light meeting on Soul Plane. We weren't there. We weren't there at the table.
We're not there.
All right, what's next? All right. Soul Plane, a black airline, day glow painting. The wheels have spinning around. We got a strip pole in the plane. We serve fried chicken and malt liquor. No, I have to see the movie.
It? You didn't see it?
We were not in the room to say, WTF. Hold up.
Wait a minute.
MF a minute.
So right. But
They're like, this sounds great. The pilot. You know, we weren't in the room. But but that's an extreme example.
right.
That's a very extreme example, but it happened. And I urge, what's going to happen is that we have enough, and I'm not trying to kill anybody's dreams, but we have enough people in front of and behind the camera. All are young, brilliant black minds that are getting these MBAs from Wharton, from Harvard, from Stanford, from NYU, like yourself, Clark AU. We have to follow what she's doing. We have to think about these positions because this is the last frontier.
Right.
Because as far as movies go, they're only going to pick one guy. We only get one. We get one, so you have, you know, Sidney was biggest one time. One time, Jim Brown was the biggest star in Hollywood. One time, Richard Pryor was one time the biggest star in Hollywood. And then you get one. But we could, I think, make more impact. We go to try to get into these gatekeeper positions. That's where impact could be made.
Speaking of gatekeepers, Black and Sexy TV has ushered in a new greenlighting process pretty much by creating their own content. Can you speak a little bit about creating your own greenlighting process and what it took to do that?
Yes. You want me to start? Yes. Well, I'll back up a little bit. I'll put this question and the first question and this question together. The reason why Black and Sexy TV even exists because I had a feature film, independent, Good Day to Be Black and Sexy. You know, very fortunate to get in Sundance with it. Very fortunate to get a distributor. It was, you know, Magnolia is a great distributor, you know, as far as cachet. And then I realized they had a different agenda than I had with my film, and all the control went away, and everything that I wanted to do with the film, and thought all the chances and opportunities and swerves, you know, and take this turn and take that turn never really happens. So, because, you know, they make you think, or maybe we fool ourselves into thinking that, all right, you're an independent filmmaker, you sold the film, you've made it, so they're gonna treat your film the same way you would treat it, and that's not really the case. It's not nothing about them that's wrong, it's just that they have a business, they're not gonna do anything special for your film. So I learned that lesson firsthand, and I said, okay, well, before, I think it was December 2008, and I was like, man, this can't be just it, you know? I made it this far, I didn't feel very good. So I said, let me figure out a way to go directly to the audience. And we were just thinking about supporting the movie when it went to DVD and doing online webisodes that were spun off for the film. But it kind of, the team kind of got together and we started doing other content that we wanted to do, and then it became addicting. So early on, we started thinking about, oh yeah, we can do this ourselves, blah, blah, blah. And that's really what it came down to. We didn't really know firsthand how far we were gonna go to where we're at now, but as things went, progressed, we just sort of figured like, hey, we got control of this. It doesn't matter. It's like you're a hip hop artist selling out a trunk of your car. You know what I mean? It felt really just good to have that. Even if you weren't getting paid, it felt good to have an audience like give you admiration and give you, passing the bags and comments. That was our currency for a very long time. And then it started turning into a business. And then we started thinking about, oh, it is a brand. It is a sort of, a distribution platform. So
exactly. And speaking of brands, because that is actually my next question, and I wanted to talk specifically to Lendl, because branding is your thing. But how important is it to brand your work or brand your work for a following? And when I say brand, I mean in the very basic sense of how the audience identifies your work, how your work stands out. How important is that? Lendl?
You start? Yeah, I think it's very important. I mean, I fall on this weird line where the old kind of regime of what filmmaking was and how distribution works and how things are branded, and like this new sort of regime where people are kind of like doing it themselves. So I work for an experiential marketing company, and this video is kind of like a pet project of mine, while at the same time a project to support some of the initiatives that we have. And so it's basically branded around the fact that there are a number of fashion brands here in Philly, and I felt like fashion brands are very, they're shown very stoic, and like people just like wearing stuff like this and like swaying in the wind, and that doesn't happen. People don't wear clothes like that. So I felt like I needed to make a film that showed clothes in the context of just like living, hence the name. And the way we branded the content itself was basically by focusing on just making it a film rather than making it overt about like, this is my film or this is that or the other. This is just a film, and have people come out and watch it. So in this particular case, that was what it was. I do have a particular set of aesthetics that I had carried out during my films that resonate throughout them, but that's about it.
Cool. Do you want to, like, Pariah, like, as far as the branding of it, it was everywhere. Like, and it was everywhere. Okay. And Black and Sexy, y'all, same thing. It's there. 40 Acres and a Mule, iconic brand. So can you talk, starting with you, Nekisa, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think as filmmakers we have a couple of questions we have to ask ourselves when we're talking about branding. Pariah is one film. Dee Reese is a filmmaker. One can argue she's also a brand. I'm a brand as a producer. So one of the questions that we had to ask ourselves was, where do we want to have the attention? What's the most important thing to focus upon? And for us, it was really about the work first. So our approach was, let's make the best movie that we can make. Let that work stand on its own, and then the halo effect of that will then follow Dee's work down the line, my work down the line, and so that was our approach for Pariah.
Oh, she. Oh.
Well, in the morning, I'm sorry. As far as In the Morning, it's a recognizable and beautiful brand. Like, if for Nefertiti's Kickstarter campaign, the actual imagery in the campaign is what brought me to her Kickstarter page. Her aesthetic, her visual aesthetic all the way around. So if you could just talk a little bit about how you put that together.
I guess it's true. Well, I would have to say I agree with what Nekisa said. I really do think it's about the work. You know what I mean? And I feel like the branding, the images, all of that, it stems from the work itself. So putting together the Kickstarter campaign and the website and all those things, it really was just having a clear vision of what I wanted the final product to be, and everything kind of emanated from that. You know what I mean? I felt like because I am a new filmmaker and a lot of people don't know who I am or didn't know who I was prior to deciding whether or not they wanted to donate to my Kickstarter campaign. I wanted to give them a taste of what I felt like the film would be. And so picking the best images for that, just to give people some sense of, what they were buying into. Is that that's really what the reason was behind.
Thank you.
Well, my brand started by accident because the only reason why I was in She's Gonna Have is because I couldn't find anybody to do it because we didn't have the money for them. We couldn't pay anybody, so that was the only reason I was in the film She's Gonna Have It as Mars. The Mars blew up. Mars got with Michael Jordan and Nike. Then I became somewhat of a brand. Then I reappeared again as Half Pint and School A's and Mookie. So at one point, there were people that knew me more as the guy with Michael Jordan commercial more than I was a filmmaker that was making these films. So it was really just an accident, to be honest. And I just had to capitalize on it. And when I put myself as Mars Blackman in She's Gonna Have It, I had no idea someone for Nike's advertising agent would say, you know, let's put this guy together with Michael Jordan. That was not planned. That was not planned.
Actually, Dennis and Numa, can you all speak to branding as well?
Yeah, the brand started with the film, A Good Day to Be Black and Sexy, and Black and Sexy was really an update, Dennis can speak on this as well, an update on Dark and Lovely, which was a shirt his mom used to wear.
Hair products.
That he just wanted to modernize that. So that's where Black and Sexy came from. And for a long time, the brand was even ahead of us as people. People recognized the brand first, which was also important to us to just have that celebration of who we are, and in a way that's fun and not too heavy. So he can speak more on it, but that's basically, you know, we're real serious about our branding down to the colors we use, the font we use, the sensibility that's throughout all of our series. We have our own kind of internal quality control about that. You know, does this feel real? You know, has anyone ever been through this before? Things like that are what people can recognize, you know, from the brand. So it goes all the way through, you know, what you see visually, what you're feeling emotionally, all the way. Sound, music is a big part of our brand. So we're always thinking about that and just how to get that brand to reach more people across the world.
Yes, that's because the brands are all amazing and aesthetically amazing. Now, as indie producers, team building is really crucial, and you all like basically have built a collective of people that you work with. Like, how hard is it to assemble your team? Like, how did you build your core team?
It's really about starting like next door, next person sitting next to me in class, or the person, you know, that I share, you know, ideals with, share philosophy with, especially from a producing standpoint. For me, it's more about philosophy more than anything. You can be the most talented person in the room, but if you don't treat people the same way that I treat people, then we're not going to work well together. So as a producer, I feel like it's important, especially for my artists, to build teams around them that complement their work styles, that complement their philosophies, and that takes time. And I think what's amazing about the Black community right now, especially in film, is that we're seeing this rise of community that I think is really amazing. Seeing all the faces out here today, for me, is incredibly amazing, incredibly inspiring. And we have to continue to support each other and continue to, you know, figure out how can I best fit in, how can I best support. Everybody can't be a director, everybody can't be a writer, everybody can't be the producer, but what can you do? How can you contribute, and how can you do that role to the best of your ability so that you can help elevate, you know, this art form for us?
I think for me, it's the same. It's like starting right next to you. I've been really fortunate to have a really strong community of friends who really wanted to kind of roll up their sleeves and help kind of bring things into fruition, like yourself. And, you know, Nzinga, who is an amazing writer, is the story editor for In the Morning, because she's just, as a friend, would read the script and constantly give me notes that made the script better. And so it's like, okay, you're not just my friend reading it, you are a talented person and you're providing valuable service. And so I feel it's been that type of thing. Like my best friend who had an investment banking background who always wanted to get into producing, and so she just was doing things for me as a favor. And you know, when it was time to do the credits, I was like, oh, you're getting a producer credit. She's like, what? Oh, I'm producing? I just was like helping. But it's like, but that's what it is. You know what I mean? It's like, it's using your resources. You know what I mean? It's just like, we had like, one of my mother's good friends who, she designed the website for me. She cooked food for us when, you know, on set. You know, it was just like this really amazing group of folks from the community that just believed and really wanted to help out. So it's been a very natural progression of like love. So that's been how I built my team.
This is very important, you know, and you have to surround yourself with people who are like-minded. Everybody has to have the same vision. And I still feel you can have a leader, but surround yourself with people who are experts in their specific fields. And you might know I'm a sports fan, and I view it as a general manager. You have to pick the right people. We've all seen many teams. Oh, who was it? I think it was last year, Vince Young, the Eagles were going to be the dream team. I didn't say it. I didn't say it. Look at it. We got this star, we got this star, we got this star, this star. And when the season played, you got to have, the Knicks are better than the Sixers, sir. We made the playoffs. So let's not even go there. But, and I was really trying to get through without bringing the Knicks up, but you started it. But we've seen again and again and again teams that won because they were a team. I remember there was that one year the Lakers had Malone, Gary Payton. They're like 8 Hall of Famers on the team. Detroit kicked their butt because Detroit, the Pistons, that Piston team was together. And so, in what you were saying, it's about ego. Everybody can't get their shine on. This is your job. Okay. Your job is not to be up front. Now, maybe if you do it, continue, you'll be able to elevate yourself and do that. But right now, you're not supposed to be doing this. Everybody has to understand what and coaches say this to their players too. Your job is to walk the ball up the court. I don't want you taking them 3-pointers for 40 feet. That's not what the light hitting second baseman that's batting 200. You're not supposed to be swinging for the fences. You walk, you get hit by a pitch, you bunt, and a little bleeder through the middle, we're good. You're not batting 3rd or 4th or 5th where we need 50 homers and 125 RBIs. Just do what you can do. And you have, when you assemble your team, you have to look at, as a general manager, trying to put together a team. What are the capabilities? What slots you have? What are the jobs we need? And who can do that? And people have to know from the get-go that this is your job, this is all you're expected to do, and do it well. And for me, that's been a learning experience because I had to learn that. I put people in positions, and this is really where you really come in. Here's the worst thing to do. Where you think you're doing your friend a favor, and you give them a position Look, everybody knows what I'm talking about. You think you're doing, and it's not even about money, but you want to really help your friend, and you put them in the position that they're not qualified for. It's bad for you, and it's bad for them. Can't do it. You got to have people who are qualified to do what they can do.
Thank you for that.
Like,
Wait, hold on.
if I was a GM, Andrew Bynum, I wouldn't have done that.
Okay, I see you.
Oh boy.
Right or wrong? Right or wrong? Am I right or wrong?
Okay.
I live here in Philly. I don't watch sports, so don't expect me to jump into this.
Exactly.
But with this particular project, again, I work with a number of like fashion brands and musicians that were based in the area. So actually I shot, edited, and like did everything on this project. I just credit myself as a director because I don't like to be like an everyman show. But in this particular project, I thought it was important as far as distribution is cross-pollinating and going into different markets. So if there was a fashion designer, that person will also push the project, that musician will also push the project. So essentially we all become like distributors in our own right or producers in our own right. And I felt like usually what happens as filmmakers, you make a film, but you're usually preaching to the choir. And so I felt like if we all worked on this in our own able way, if like a designer had a piece in there and they Instagram like a still from the video, that's reaching a new market that I didn't even have base with before. And these people are familiar with me, and we end up developing rapport, and it does bring in new business in a sense, and people are familiar with my aesthetic, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's important to start breaking down the structure of things and thinking of things in a very different light, and figuring out how collaboration, even if it is in a different territory or if it's a different medium, how we could bridge those things together for a greater good.
Thank you. Oh, you got one.
I guess the way that we work, or the way that I like to work, is very organic. I think people come into your lives for a reason. Some people are just attracted to you. So we have, on Black and Sexy TV, we have 4 main people and founders. And for the most part, Brian is my main partner, cinematographer, post-production, visual guy, and I've known him in college. So he saw my short film in college in a screening. He came to me, was like, man, I want to work and shoot your next film. That's how it happened. You know, he saw something in me, and I saw something in him, and we've been working ever since college. So Numa, I actually found and saw on MySpace. I saw her images, yeah. That's like your eyes opened up, like, oh, what the hell? No, but I saw her images. You know, MySpace is much different than Facebook. You can actually be an artist and present yourself in a way you want to be presented. You know, your page was very customized. So I saw her page and I stumbled upon it. I was like, who is this person? And then I saw a link to a short film that she did, and I was like, oh, I really want to connect with this person. I didn't know what was going to come about it, but I knew I was attracted to her, quote unquote.
Quote unquote.
And so we met, and she said, oh, I needed someone to be able to get the branding started for my movie, and she's a photographer and an artist, and so she photographed the poster for my movie, and that was our first thing working on each other. We didn't really know Black and Sexy TV was really going to come about when that was happening, but that's, kind of how it happened. And then Janine is our last founder. She saw a screening of my film in Los Angeles and said, I wanted to work with you after the screening. I said, okay, whatever. And then, not that I would do that to anybody else, but I'm just saying, I was like, everybody says they want to work with you. And I was like, okay. But she kept pursuing and hounding me forever. And then I finally was like, all right, man, let's meet. And then she's a godsend. She definitely is like the last piece of like the creative brain trust of starting Black and Sexy TV. And I'll say one more thing. We have Tina, who basically is our assistant and associate producer in training. She came in and then hounded me in the same way, actually, from Facebook to an email, and I don't know what else you did, Tina, but she just kept hounding, and I saw the emails. I was like, okay, another person, okay. But, I think that's what it is she came in and just, for some reason, you let people in, and then you find out later why that was a good decision, so.
Give thanks. I have one last question, and then we're going to open it up to the floor for questions. So if we could get the mic set up down here. So the last question is about crowdfunding.
Boom.
Yes. As independent producers, it's always hard to get money. And I know a lot of you have raised money and are currently raising money on crowdfunding platforms. Can you talk a little bit about how crowdfunding changed the game of the funding game, pretty much? And then, Spike Lee, I have a question for you specifically about your Kickstarter. Why did you decide to make the film a mystery?
Why ask the first question?
Okay.
I think everybody wants to know the answer to that. This is, who doesn't know about crowdfunding, Kickstarter? Raise your hand if you do not.
A lot of people don't. We don't really, Nisha, we don't know about it.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Who does not know about crowdfunding, Kickstarter, that sort of stuff? Okay, so let's start there. So basically, I want to say maybe 10 years ago, I'm going to actually take it back further. Documentary filmmakers were basically, there's a couple of examples. I can't remember the names of those, and I will remember those and get them out to you guys because you need to look up that history. But they basically had lists of people that have been supporting their documentaries, and what they started to do or think about is like instead of having to go to the PBSs and the smaller television stations to fund their documentary, they were like, well, if I send an email out to my list of 1,000 people or 100,000 people and ask them for $5, then I can make my movie myself. I don't have to go to anyone else. And so they were going direct to the audience. This was like 10 years ago. And then you had things like Indiegogo come through. And then you had things like within the music space, you had artists that were coming together and also raising money, going direct to their own audience. And then you had the idea of, any one artist, they say, needs like 1,000 true fans. If I can get 1,000 true fans that will give me $100 a year a piece based on the content that I produce, then I don't actually need to go to anyone else to greenlight me. So I think those are a number of the different ideas that were in the various spaces, artist spaces, that sort of came together to create this idea of crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. And so I think it was maybe 7 years ago. I'm not sure how long ago Kickstarter was started, but Kickstarter came out of nowhere, and they basically took the idea, they commoditized it, and started to build a brand around it, and it's become this thing that everybody's talking about now. It's a way to go direct to your audience and ask them to support your film. It's not an investment. It's literally people giving you pledges, in some cases donations, so that they can support your work. And what's fantastic about the Kickstarter platform is that you specify a goal, a dollar goal, then you specify a period of time in which you're gonna raise that dollar goal, and you have, during that campaign time, anywhere from 30 to 45 days, you're basically going out and hoping that the reach of your campaign will be such that you can get backers that will support your goal. And if you make the goal in the amount of time that you allot, then you get the money. If you don't make the goal in the time that you allot, then you don't get the money. And that's, in essence, what the whole platform is about. What's been controversial, I think, over the last year or so is we've started to see other people coming into the Kickstarter space that are not just independent filmmakers. We started to see celebrities leverage their own fan base. We started to see even corporations leveraging their own, their base and their list to raise money. And so the controversy now, or the questions that people are asking is, well, who is this platform for? Is it for anyone? Like, should Spike be allowed to be on Kickstarter? Is it only for indie filmmakers? Like, I'm excited about this conversation because it's interesting, and it's getting people engaged, and it's bringing people to film, it's bringing people to financing that weren't thinking about it before. So I'm gonna stop talking now. I think I set it up.
Thank you for that, Nekisa. Give thanks.
I decided to raise money on Kickstarter for my film. When I made my first 2 shorts, I would just email people, just my friends, my contacts, family members, and just say, this is the project that I'm working on, and just ask them to make, a donation. What's great about Kickstarter is that you get to lay out a lot more information about what the project is. You get to have a video so people kind of get a better sense of what it is. And for me, I knew that I didn't have any chance whatsoever of getting funded by a studio. There's no studio that's gonna make a film about 3 Black women having these quiet, emotional lives. You know what I mean? And so I felt like for me, it was up to my community. You know what I mean? Like I had to go to the people who I felt like I was making this film for to say, please help me make it. You know what I mean? Please greenlight this film for me. And so I feel like for me, it's even more rewarding in that way. You know what I mean? It's just like I have no one telling me, signing off on whether or not something is authentic from a Black woman's point of view who has no idea of what a Black woman's point of view is. You know what I mean? It's like my community gave me the green light. They put their money where their mouth was and said, we believe in you. And so I wouldn't trade it up for the world. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thanks.
I've participated, I guess, in about 2 Kickstarter campaigns at this point. Weren't film-centric, but for brands, but I've had shot videos for them, and it's interesting because I think Kickstarter is a wonderful thing, but it requires, unless you have the following of this gentleman right here, it requires a lot of strategy even prior to like putting that video out saying like, I want money. I think people will like go out and say like, oh, this is a wonderful thing, I just want to put a video out, and just like, the money's gonna come in. No, that does not happen. But I think it goes back to a lot of what these individuals were mentioning is that really getting a team around you, because even though you make a video and say you want to raise some funds, you got to have the team to push that to the right people and to the right networks. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. But I think the beautiful thing about Kickstarter in relation to Black film is that in the time that film has existed, Black people have been demeaned across the board, and still to this day. Like, we're still like the dark figure in the background, or like the sidekick, or like the helper almost, still for the most part in film, at least in Hollywood film. And I think the beautiful thing about Kickstarter, it does enable us to start changing that perception if we're like start supporting each other. So yeah.
I just want to say one thing. Even if you have a large following like Spike, you still need a strategy. That's definitely across the board.
Even more. Yeah, so the crowdfunding, it's very exciting. We've done 3 campaigns for Black and Sexy TV through Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And for the first Kickstarter we did was to make the couple web series into feature film. And we felt like we had a pretty good plan for it because we had hit over 1 million views on the show. We had, pretty good fan base going. People seemed to like the idea when we did kind of a preliminary announcement. We got a lot of great feedback from that, so we said, okay, let's try this Kickstarter thing. And we were learning it as we went every single day, and we had to learn it fast because we only had 30 days to make our goal. And the thing is, it's not just about making your goal to get your project made. Kickstarter is really something that can kickstart a renaissance, or to use a stronger word, a revolution for what we're doing as Black creators, not just in film, but inventors, any innovation that we have. Because if we can figure out this funding thing, then we can figure out this distribution thing, and we can do a lot. So it's really important to me that we figure this Kickstarter thing out, and that we start changing our attitudes about money and wealth. And independent spirit is not about how much money you have. Whether we're doing our campaign, our first campaign was for $25,000, and we were scared that we wouldn't even be able to make that. We were saying, no, we should have done 20, but at the end, we got 33,000. People came out that we didn't even know. So, the thing is, the independent spirit, it's not about how much money you have, even, like with Mr. Spike Lee here. It's about having our vision be undiluted by this infrastructure that's in place. And we can create a new infrastructure. I mean, I could talk about this, all day long, but I just want to plant that seed in everybody's head out there that it's really about a paradigm shift in how we view money. And this is really deep, It's really about that. Because it's out there for us, and we have it worldwide with each other. That doesn't mean you can just put anything out there and expect money's just gonna come to you. But if you can tap into the energy and you can connect with people because the money is the secondary, the funding is the secondary part of Kickstarter. It's the crowdfunding. It's the crowd, then the funding. So I'll pass. We can talk more later.
Yeah. Okay.
I first come to know of Kickstarter through my students at NYU Graduate Film School. I've been teaching there for the last 15 years. I'm also artistic director of the film school. And NYU grad is 3 years. It's a master's program, and my students are only the third-year students who are third year, you do your thesis film. And a lot of my students were utilizing Kickstarter to get the completion funds for their film. And they were, the amounts were 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. So I never ever saw that as a way that I could use it. And then my TA, his name is Julius Pryor III, third generation Morehouse man, like I am.
That's right, AUC.
He's my TA. He said, Spike, you need to start looking at a Kickstarter. And the reason why was because there were two projects. Veronica Mars, which was a canceled TV show. They raised $5.5 million on Kickstarter. And then Zach Braff, you might have seen him in his show. He was on a show called Scrubs with brother man Donald Faison on NBC. He raised $3.5 million. So when I found that out, I went over to the office of Kickstarter and met with the two co-founders, Yancey and Perry, and I just wanted to get as much information as I could. They were tired of me being in their office. And then that's when I made it, after doing a lot of due diligence and with their guidance, decided to do this Kickstarter. So we have a goal of $1,250,000. That's Brooklyn right there, 250. And we're, I think, 1.5 million with 19, how many days? 19 days left. And so, as Nisha talked about, you know, I have been attacked for why am I on Kickstarter, but my answer is this. I'm an independent filmmaker. I was doing Kickstarter before there was Kickstarter. How do you think we raised the $175,000 for She's Gotta Have It, my first film? It was me making phone calls, writing a letter,
Writing letters.
pen on paper.
Yes.
Remember what a postcard is? Remember what a stamp is? That's what I did. So the principles of Kickstarter have been there forever. Since anybody, I mean, back in the day, Michelangelo's guys, they had to get money from their patrons. You had to get money from the church to do your stuff, or be commissioned to do something. So the principles are the same, but now we're using technology with social media. So it is my feeling that Kickstarter is for everyone.
It is.
And what I'm doing is appealing to the people who've liked my work for the last 3 decades. And I like to say, Philly's been there for the beginning. Philly. Let's leave sports out of it. Philadelphia has been behind me from the very beginning, because I think it was a theater called the Ritz. You guys, black folks lined around the block to see She's Gotta Have It.
Yeah.
Around the block. Oh, and that was back in 1986.
That's right.
So what I'm doing now with Kickstarter is appealing, not just black folks, but appealing to anybody who's over the last 30 years, if I made you laugh, made you cry, if you got mad when Mookie threw the garbage can through the window, if you like the way Rosie danced, the opening credits of, if you like Kings of Comedy, if you like Denzel, Malcolm X, put down, that's good for at least $5.
$5. Okay, so
$5. And you get something for it.
$5. We got you for $5.
$5. Got there.
$5. But you know, we're running out of time, and we want to open it up for questions to the audience, and we're gonna get back to that, to the mystery. But if we could open up the floor to questions, we only have time for a few.
Hello. I really enjoy the panel and all of your perspectives, and you all have various perspectives, just working in different aspects of independent and with major studios, you, Mr. Lee. So it's interesting, Mr. Lee, when you talk about there being gatekeepers and not having enough gatekeepers that are people of color and that care about our stories. But I just wanted to ask everyone on the panel if you think with avenues like Kickstarter and with social media, we'll have a future in film that really still depends on gatekeepers, because gatekeepers are necessary for more of broadcast culture, like major studios, theaters, television, radio, but you have YouTube, you have so many other ways to get your work to people. So do you think that having those gatekeepers will still be as important with things like Kickstarter and social media?
If I can answer this quickly, I think that we have to look at this, again, another sports analogy. You gotta have your ground game, you gotta be able to run the ball, you gotta be able to throw the ball, you gotta have your kicking game straight, so it's not just we should just concentrate on one area. We have to attack this every way, and everybody has expertise where we could work. Everybody can't make a movie. But you might have a mathematical, analytical mind that is best used as a studio job. You know, find out what it is that you're best at, where your craft is, where your expertise, and we could all come together and attack this thing. But for me, it just can't be from one direction. I think that we have to build on Kickstarter. I don't think that we just roll over and not try to crash the gates as being a gatekeeper. Everybody has their own spot, expertise, where they can fit in. And when we get this, we can get this thing done.
Okay.
I think it's very interesting right now because going back to what you mentioned about the web, you have places like Vice that are like going to be worth almost $1 billion in the next 5 years. So these places are getting like trillions of views on documentaries, really poignant and interesting work, sometimes gratuitous work. But on the same note, they're getting the views. I think one thing that will change, and it's kind of unfortunate, kind of sad for me, I wonder what place will the theater have still in context of distribution and things are happening like that. But I think that in the case of the gatekeepers, I think the gatekeepers are going online. And you can even see it in Netflix with House of Cards being nominated for an Emmy. So,
actually, we're going to move on to the next question because we don't have very much time.
My question is, we spoke about teamwork earlier, and as a writer, how do you keep your individual voice while you're opening up to a team? You know how they say too many hands in the food, you know, in the pot spoils the food. Like, how do you decide who's in charge?
Well, there's always, you know, for Black and Sexy TV, a head writer on the show, or whoever connects to the concept for that episode pretty much takes the lead. And, you know, the final say just kind of goes through our quality control. Is this representing a voice that we feel is authentic, you know? But we've had bumps before with writers where we've kind of, you know, had to let someone go. You know, we've had bumps before. You know, it can be a little bit of a bumpy road, but at the end of the day, you have to stay true to your voice, you know, and that's it, because all you have is your brand.
Sometimes you have to be an asshole. So.
Okay, actually, and we have time for one last question.
I'm sorry, I don't want to take up somebody else's time, but I'm actually not involved in anything in film whatsoever. I'm actually in the healthcare field, and I sort of fell upon this. So I wanted to congratulate you. And how do I find out more information? Because I feel like with some of the funding, you can actually ask like the National Medical Association or the National Law Association. Like, I feel like there's a lot of people who are not aware of what you're doing and could be very interested.
Actually, we do have a little bit more time.
Great questions. We have more time for great questions.
Okay. Okay. Actually, I'm sorry.
I think that was a comment. Was that a comment?
She wanted to know how
can
Okay. How do you reach us?
Yes.
How do you know? Kickstarter. You can for Spike Lee's Kickstarter, just put Spike Lee in the search box on Kickstarter. His campaign will come right up. Black and Sexy TV. You go to YouTube/Black and Sexy TV. What's your?
LendlTellington.com.
InTheMorning-thefilm.com.
PariahTheMovie.com.
Well, I guess my point is not that specific things. Like, I guess my question is, are you sort of appealing to a wider audience, as in, are you reaching out to, the professionals? Because and no offense, I just wasn't aware, and I'm in medicine, so totally not.
Yeah, one step at a time. We reach out, to your closest circle first, and then keep expanding and expanding that, and that's what we're doing right now. Just to answer briefly.
You think about it like a marketing campaign, and you think about your network and how your network can lead you to other networks. And
exactly.
It's literally a marketing campaign. Next question.
All right, I'm here just getting kind of into film, but more into gaming and that field. And just wanted to know, as a lot of you all are pioneers coming into different areas of film and to new media. As a pioneer into the game universe, just what would you recommend to somebody as to try to break in? Because right now there really are no big game producers that are African American.
YouTube.
Yeah, you said it's already, people are saying, how can we make it happen? It's already happening. Yeah. So people are already doing it. And it's like some people are going to be leaders, some are going to be followers, some people are going to be, on the sidelines being an audience. So you got to decide where you fit in. If you say, okay, I'm more of a sort of like this is my part in the chink or my part in the team, like Spike says, and you say, okay, you find the team that works with you. You know what I mean? And that's it. Or you make the team, or you are the team. But you don't really have to wait or figure out how to do it. You just do it.
Awesome. Okay. Actually, why did you decide to do the mystery project? And very quickly, because we have to wrap up.
Oh, I'll give a short answer. Especially this question. The question is, what is my film about? Well, it's about human beings who are addicted to blood. Not addicted to drugs, not addicted to sex, not addicted to alcohol, not addicted to money, not addicted to power. They're addicted to blood. It's a bloody, psychological, sexy thriller, a new kind of love story.
Okay. Okay, you heard it here. You heard it at the BlackStar
Film Festival. A new kind of love story. We got something for your ass.
Okay. All right. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, all the panelists. We so appreciate you. And the BlackStar Film Festival thanks you for coming out.